Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm going to talk about understanding the impact of endogenous versus exogenous nitrosamines today. What I'm here to say, I say on behalf of the generic industry. As we all know, the generic industry, as well as the innovators and over-the-counter drug manufacturers, have been profoundly impacted by the detection of nitrosamines in several drug substances and drug products. The results of these findings have led to unprecedented burden on the industry, a drainage of resources in risk evaluation, confirmatory testing, and sometimes attempts to reformulate. Now, nitrosamines are possible and probable carcinogens according to IARC and a cohort of concern according to M7. So it's quite justified that we should be cognizant of their presence in drugs and try to control them at the lowest possible limits. However, we should not lose sight of the reality that the sources of nitrosamines can be exogenous as well as endogenous. The impurities in pharmaceuticals are part of exogenous sources of nitrosamines, joining the likes of tobacco, beer, bacon, cosmetics, and others. Nitrosamines are truly ubiquitous. But studies as early as 1968 showed that nitrosamines can be generated endogenously with simultaneous feeding of nitrite and amines to animals. We excrete nitrosoproline and NDMA in our urine every day, a clear evidence of endogenous nitrosation. The evidence of in vivo nitrosation goes on and on. We have also seen that drugs like propranolol can be nitrosated endogenously. In fact, Tricker et al. Is of the opinion that 45 to 75% exposure to nitrosamine is due to endogenous nitrosation. Endogenous nitrosation is tough to study as nitrosamines degrade in our body quickly after activation by alpha hydroxylation to form deleterious products. The bigger the nitrosamine, the more complex the degradants. Also, there are about 300 FDA-approved secondary and tertiary amine drugs which could undergo endogenous nitrosation to form NDSRIs. And yes, tertiary amines can form nitrosamines quite rapidly. So before we set ultra-conservative and sometimes unachievable limits to these NDSRIs, we need to understand if they are formed endogenously. Imagine if even 0.1% of a drug undergoes nitrosation in the GI tract, the risk related to the same nitrosamine being controlled at a few ppb in the drug may not be relevant. Some of you may be wondering as to why I'm talking about this specifically in a generic forum. That is because generic industry has a unique situation where each of the amine drugs we were talking about may have several ANDAs to them, and thus the sponsors trying to do these studies would cause redundancy, confusion, and even contradictory outcomes. Also, generic represents 90% of all prescriptions dispensed in the US. Thus, it would be greatly beneficial if OGD spearheads these studies and invests some of the GADUFA research resources in studying endogenous nitrosation. After all, we need to understand if we are chasing mosquitoes with SWAT missiles here when a herd of elephants are rampaging our backyard. On that note, and with that image for you to visualize, I conclude my talk. Thank you very much and have a great day.